Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 464 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, the part that never gets talked about when we talk about change is what happens if you don't want to accept it? Or let alone not want to accept it, but what happens if you don't want to deal with change? I think there's a negative connotation when it comes to that. I think we all understand that change is inevitable. When you improve on something, when something's happened for a while and it just needs to go a different direction, that is essentially change. And with time, with age, with experience, everything changes. And for some people, they just don't want to deal with that. For some people, they just don't like that. And we've seen in the sports realm a lot of change in the college arena. Whether we talk about NIL, whether we talk about transfer portal, we have seen a lot of change. And with that, we've seen coaches essentially not want to deal with it or feel that they're unable to deal with it, which is why you see coaches like Nick Saban retire from coaching, which is why you see coaches like Coach K, Roy Williams. And now the latest coach is Tony Bennett, the coach for Villanova, or now the former coach of the Villanova basketball team. I think the misnomer, and we talk about not accepting change so negatively that I'll say it here, man. Sometimes it's okay. It's okay to make a decision that's best for you. And sometimes change isn't what's best for you. You know, you hear a very similar tone when a lot of these legendary coaches step away. You hear a lot of the same issues. And for the longest, especially when we talk about Nick Saban. But for the longest, the title, or we fans, analysts, a lot of people wanted to attach not liking or not accepting NIL as the reason. When Coach K retired, they were saying, oh, he doesn't like how the whole NIL thing happened and how this is going to affect him coaching. Same thing with Nick Saban. On a lesser term, same thing with Roy Williams. And with Tony Bennett retiring with like 19 or 20 days before the season starts, and it seemed like out of nowhere, there were questions and of course he comes out and says, you know, the state of college sports, he didn't want to deal with. He didn't feel like he could be the best version of himself in this new realm that is in college sports. And he said something, Tony Bennett said something that I think triggered all of this. And what I mean triggered all of this, he said something that made me understand completely what's going on. He said, I have absolutely no problem with people getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. I have no problem, and I'm actually for. He supports these college athletes getting paid for their services. What he doesn't like is the state of college basketball, of college sports in general. And he doesn't like the direction that they're going. Obviously, they're not the same words, but those are the same word. That's the same sentiment that Coach K had, that Nick Saban had, that Roy Williams had. And it hit me. None of this is about the NIL. None of it. Well, I'll say it like this. The NIL is not the main reason. They're not mad at NIL. They're mad at the effect, not just the NIL have on college sports, but the transfer portal. I don't think that there's any question that it's harder, in my opinion, to be a college coach than a professional coach. I'm not going to disrespect being a professional coach, and I'm not going to say that. I'm sure that it's very tough, coaching players that essentially make more than you and grown individuals. I'm sure that's tough. And I'm sure that there are a lot of challenges that come with being a professional coach. So I'm not disrespecting it. Please do not hear me say that. But there's a different mindset, a different approach that you have to have being a college coach, whether we talk about recruiting. That's something that you don't have to do pretty much in the professionals. Recruiting, you have to recruit year round. And now with the transfer portal, which we'll talk in depth more, it's so much harder. You know what it means? It makes success urgent. It makes success almost have to be immediate, or you're deemed a failure. With the transfer portal, and you see just how many kids enter into the transfer portal yearly, it's already hard to retain talent in college sports because most 90% of the people, almost probably 99% of the team thinks that they are going to be playing at the next level. And it's hard to come to the realization that a lot of these players aren't, but they still have the mindset of, hey, I was the man in high school. I should be the man here. And now with these players making more than a lot of these coaches, now with these players caring more about NIL deals, now with these players caring with the NIL deals and the transfer portal go hand to hand. And you kind of seeing that with the quarterback and the running back for UNLV. If you can pay me more money, I will go to your school. I think a lot of these kids these days don't care about national championship. A lot of these kids don't care about accolades. They care about making money, which I'm not saying that's a problem. A lot of these individuals are coming from situations where they have to figure out a way to make it. A lot of these families that these kids are attached to have struggled their entire lives. So when you see money out there, it's like, a ring, a national championship ain't doing nothing for me right now, but $1 million or $500K is. And I think that that's what's tough on a lot of coaches. Because not only are you fighting to reach the ultimate goal of a national championship, but you're now fighting that I'm not really here. I don't really care about national championship. I just care about getting as much money as possible. And you're seeing legendary coaches now leave. Let's not get it twisted, man. Tony Bennett is one of the best college basketball coaches we've seen in a while. When we talk about the greats like a Coach K, like a Roy Williams, like a Bill Self, like a Tom Izzo, Tony Bennett's name at least should be up there for a lot of people. And we're going to see a lot more of this, as unfortunate as it is, because I don't think people really get how different college sports is than it was just, let's say, 5 years ago. The whole landscape of college sports is different. And some people just don't have the capacity to deal with it because, quiet as it's kept, this is a year-round thing. Again, when we talk about recruiting, when we talk about practices, when we talk about workouts, traveling, this is a year-round thing. If you want a top-tier program, if you want to recruit the best players, this is a year-round thing. And now you're integrating something that has the power to completely uproot a program. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. And maybe not, it's not just don't want to deal with it, don't have the capacity to deal with that. And what it sounded like in the press conference that Tony Bennett had is he couldn't do it anymore. Some people just can't navigate in the news, or can't navigate in the new space that they're in, and that's okay. Tony Bennett, in my opinion, will still go down as one of the best coaches that, for damn sure, Virginia has ever seen. But this is the new wave. College sports is changing. And I think you're already making an incredibly difficult sport that much more difficult, because now I think there's always been a certain level of focus on a lot of these players to get to the next level. Like, yes, you want to win a championship, but for a lot of players that know that they're good enough to make it to the next level, that's mainly their focus. Or that's mainly been their focus, is do what I have to do to get to the next level. And even in that thinking, you still get a lot of players that's going to try their hardest, and that's going to play their hardest, and that's going to sacrifice for the team. And that's because they understand that the little things they do here is going to pay dividends in the future. Now you're getting a lot of kids, and I will say this, I am all for everyone getting paid, especially with the amount of money that these schools are making on these kids and these programs. I'm all for kids getting paid. But now you're getting a lot of entitlement. You're getting a lot of players that have professional mindsets but aren't professional players. You're getting employees now. And for a lot of coaches, it's hard. Recruiting is different now. Recruiting is tough all around, don't get me wrong, but now if your school can pay, if I can make more money going to North Carolina and my dream school is Florida and they can't give me what it is, obviously I'm going to go to North Carolina, which hurts Florida. And don't get me wrong, I understand that Tony Bennett was the main reason why Virginia won a national championship a few years ago. Obviously, they had Kyle Guy and DeAndre Hunter in them, but there's a reason why Virginia hasn't been the best since. Congratulations to Tony Bennett for making the decision to want to exit college basketball. I think college basketball as a whole is a lesser product without him. I understand people's frustration and confusion as to why you would do this before, like 19 to 20 days before the season. But when you know, you know. And from listening to his press conference, he's been wrestling with it for a few years now. And he just came to the realization now that, yeah, this is time. So I don't want nothing about him quitting or retiring, I'll say, takes away from the legacy that he has. He was one of the best college coaches ever. So congratulations to Tony Bennett for making the decision on his own to retire from basketball or coaching basketball. Speaking of coaching, coaching is important on every level. Some levels, obviously, coaching is more vital. But coaching is important on every level. And I'm not saying it's all on Dennis Allen. But I think the fall for the Saints has to be studied. Injuries play a huge part in sports. We know this. This has been talked about. And there's a reason why some people say that certain organizations are cursed, or certain organizations are more cursed than others. The first 2 weeks of the season. In fact, if you would have took a screenshot of the first 2 weeks of the season, and if that screenshot was going to tell the entire season, if that screenshot was going to be a accurate representation of the entire season, you would have thought the New Orleans Saints was the best team in football. You would have thought that because you would have been right. The first 2 weeks, the New Orleans Saints were, in my opinion, by far the best team in football. At least the best offense. There was a stretch where I think they scored on 15 straight possessions. Now, for people that don't understand, in an actual NFL game, you probably get about 7 to 9 possessions, your offense. If everything goes well, if there's not too many turnovers, you get about 7 to 9 possessions. So the fact that they scored on the first 15 of them, you would have thought like that. It shows how prolific that offense was. You had Derek Carr playing at an all-time level. You had Alvin Kamara looking like the Alvin Kamara of old. This team, the Saints, could not be stopped. If you would have took a screenshot of those first 2 weeks, you probably would have also thought that screenshot would have been years ago if you would have looked at it today. Because the Saints that we saw 2 weeks ago, 2-0, arguably the best team in football, looks drastically different than this Saints team that just lost to the Broncos 33-10 and is now on a 5-game losing streak. 5. We'll talk about the Broncos in a second, but I think that this is more about the Saints. Yes, injuries play a huge part. Derek Carr being out. Now, Rashid Shaheed being out. Most of the defense being out for a long period of time or for an extended period of time definitely hurts. But I think the crazy part about this is, and as unfortunate as it is to say, it is true. For a lot of people, this was expected. I remember I put out a clip when they beat the Cowboys. I talked about it. I even put out a reel. I put out a clip saying that this Saints team, if they keep it up, if this Saints team, obviously I didn't think they were going to keep up the scoring, the amount of scoring that they were doing, because it was on a all-time level. But I said if they're able to keep up this pace, or even close to this pace, they will have something to say about who represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. I thought it was very interesting when I posted those clips and posted the reel. A lot of people under the comments was saying, just wait. The Saints do this all the time. Hell, even I said it in my prediction. I said that the Saints continue to not reach expectation. And who would have thought how right I would have been and how right all those commenters would have been just 5 weeks later. This Saints team is an absolute shell of itself that it was just 5 weeks ago. Who would have thought that a Saints team in week 7 would have been completely different than it was in week 2? You know, this is the perfect example of is like, yo, don't make any rash decisions. Don't make any proclamations 2 weeks in, because it is a long season. When people say it's a long season, obviously they're right, because it is a long season. But they're talking about situations like this, because things can turn for both the good and the bad. Spencer Rattler hasn't really looked good. I know he was pick 150, but he hasn't looked good. A lot of the question marks and concerns that plagued Spencer Rattler even in college we're kind of seeing in the pros. Who would have thought? Alvin Kamara, he's kind of regressed back to where he's been these last few years at this point. He has his moments, and injuries have wrecked the team again. To now, the only you look, the NFC South that had a lot of promise and still has some promise when you look at the Falcons, when you look at the Buccaneers, but this was shaping up to be one of the toughest divisions outside of the Panthers. And now if we look, the Saints have, I'd be shocked at this point. A team that I said in week 2 would be Super Bowl contenders. I'm shocked. I'd be shocked if they even make the playoffs, and this is week 7. Again, injuries play a huge part, but even in that, Derek Carr wasn't playing well. When he was playing after the first 2 weeks, then you go back to coaching. It's like some of the things that Dennis Allen does. It's like some of the coaching decisions just doesn't make sense. And what's even worse is that I don't know how low it could get for the Saints. but it feels like this Thursday night football game was the lowest it could get. And I say that because look at everything that went into this game and how we feel going out of it. Going into this game, Sean Payton returns to New Orleans. He's obviously the coach that brought them to the Super Bowl. 2006 was a big year for the United States, obviously with Hurricane Katrina and everything he meant to that team, to the state of New Orleans. Or Louisiana, I'm sorry. New Orleans is not a state. To the state of Louisiana. So that was a touching homecoming. They had Drew Brees come back. Again, you're at home. And now I don't even think this team is good enough to make the playoffs, bro. And that is so far from what we thought. Or at least, I'm not going to throw y'all under the bus. I'll say me. At least that's it's crazy. Because that's nowhere close to what I thought this team was going to be just 2 weeks in, just 5 weeks ago. And if you look at this game, and now I'll kind of merge over to the Broncos. It was apparent fast that these are two different. It felt like the Saints did not deserve to be on the same field as the Broncos. And I know 33-10 seems bad, and it was bad, but the Broncos didn't even look dominant. Yes, Javonte Williams had 88 yards rushing for 2 touchdowns, but they didn't do much. It was just the Saints couldn't execute nothing. And I will say shout out to the Broncos. The Broncos quietly have stacked up these wins. They're now 4-3 and 3-1 on the road. And quiet as it's kept, there's still a lot of question marks in my opinion with Bo Nix. Still a lot of question marks with the offense, but this defense has been incredible. It is. I still, especially with how spotty Bo Nix and this offense look, I still wouldn't pick the Broncos against. Like I don't think the Broncos are going to make any noise in the AFC West, seeing as though who's in the AFC West. Then they've already lost to the Chargers. But they looked so superior. And that's the thing that's kind of the most shocking to me. You went into New Orleans and you look like the more physical, more superior team. Now, mind you, I understand that there's a lot of people that didn't play, and Paul Adebo, I'm sure I said your name wrong. I think it's Paulson Adebo, their cornerback, a very important piece. He's out for the season now. But I know a bunch of people didn't play, but a bunch of people did play. Chase Young played. Tyrann Mathieu played. Cam, why is his name slipping my mind? But he played. Big name players played. Alvin Kamara played. And it kind of looked like JV against varsity. A bad varsity team, too, because this Broncos offense didn't look great. Don't let the 33 points fool you. A lot of it was bad turnovers. Congratulations to the Broncos. Oh, another thing. Because people were saying that I owe Sean Payton an apology because I was very critical with Sean Payton when we talk about his handling and his dealing with the Russell Wilson situation. And I was very vocal on the whole want to do it my way. I understand that all coaches have a system, have a way of coaching. That's just how they do things. And for Sean Payton, he has seen success once. And people were saying I owe him an apology because now he's 4-3. Bo Nix looks okay, and they're 3-1 on the road. And I will say, yes, I was wrong in saying in feeling like the Broncos would be terrible. I thought the Broncos would be god awful. For that, I was wrong. But I'm still until I'm being proven otherwise. And I think you guys know that I'm not above apologizing, especially if I'm wrong. But I still don't feel like I was wrong about my take on how Sean Payton essentially was to Russell Wilson and how all that ended. And I still think that I think Bo Nix is a lot better than I thought he would be in the pros. Obviously, being an Oregon fan, I watched him at Oregon. I know how good he can be. I just didn't know if that was going to translate. And it seems like for a lot of it, it has. So for that, I was inaccurate with. But I think the jury is still out. But for the meantime, I will say congratulations to the Broncos for beating the Saints on Thursday Night Football, 33-10. The last thing I'm going to say before I give my predictions for Week 7 is I was talking to my man Jordan. Shouts out to Jordan. He has a channel on YouTube, and he primarily talks about baseball. And I might link his channel in the description. You should go check him out. Jordan Banksy, J Banksy 22, I think it's called. I'll leave his channel in the description. But we were talking, and he asked me, what do you think the best Thursday Night Football game was? Because we were saying that the NFL must hate Amazon and must hate Thursday Night Football because usually the worst games of the season usually take place on Thursday Night Football. And we were looking and we were thinking, I think the two best and the two great games that we can remember was Ravens against the Bengals. But even in that game, Joe Burrow got hurt and Mark Andrews got hurt. And that was when the conversation around the hip drop tackle really started with the Mark Andrews injury. And the Chargers and the Chiefs. Those are probably the two best games. The Chargers and the Chiefs happens, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago. That's it. Every other game has been either a stinker or there's been a major injury. Or it's been plagued by injuries. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what it is. But there's been a lot more misses on Thursday Night Football than there has been hits. But again, congratulations to the Broncos for beating the Saints 33-10 on Thursday Night Football. And as you guys know, as I say every week, Thursday Night Football is the start of the new NFL week. So now we are in Week 7, and I'm going to give my predictions for Week 7. The first game that we're going to see on Sunday is actually in London. You have the Patriots against the Jaguars. The NFL also has to hate the overseas. They have to hate overseas because they keep making them watch poor teams. And now you have two teams that have a combined record of 2-10. I talked about this last episode. Actually, not last episode, last week. And I talked about how important the the game was for Philly going against the Browns. And I talked about the ramifications of ramifications if the Eagles would have lost that game. Obviously, they ended up winning. But if they would have lost that game, there's games on the schedule, especially when you see how your team is going. If it's not going the way you thought it would go, there are games where you can circle it. And if you lose that game, those are called fireable games. And the noise around the Eagles, them not playing the way that you think they would play going into the season, that Browns game was a fireable game, meaning if the Eagles would have lost that game, I'm almost sure it would have been very easy for the upper management to look at Nick Sirianni and be like, you got to go, because you lost to what could very well be the worst team in football. I say all that to say, we know what Doug Peterson has done as a head coach. And in no way, shape, or form am I putting everything that's going on with the Jags right now on Doug Peterson. One thing that I've heard majority of this week, which I love, is a lot of these former players holding the players accountable, because at the end of the day, these coaches are just coaching. Now, if it is a coaching issue, they obviously talk about it, but they say, yo, players got to play. So I'm not putting all of the issues that the Jaguars are going through at the feet of Doug Peterson. But this is one of those fireable games. I understand that the season has gone completely off the rails for the Jaguars, meaning they didn't think that in week 7 they would be 1-5. But you just paid Trevor Lawrence. You got him some help. You made some moves, very positive moves for this offense or for this roster. That usually means if you lose this game to a team that is very openly rebuilding, has arguably the worst offensive line in football, starting a rookie quarterback who has not won a game yet, as far as they have not won a game with Drake May starting, that don't really have pieces on either side of the ball that you can lean on and be like, yeah, we got it. And you lose this game? There's already been murmurs about Doug Peterson's job not being secure. Trust and believe, it would be on the wobbliest of tables if you lose this game, which is why I'm picking the Jaguars to win. The Jaguars have been bad this year. Do not get it twisted. But if they like their coach, I'll say that. If they like their coach, if they care as much as they say they do about Doug Peterson, they would win this game. And as bad as the Jaguars have been, I don't think they've been as bad as the Patriots have been. So I have the Jaguars being the Patriots. And obviously before this season, the Jaguars were pretty much the New England Patriots with Tom Brady when they're overseas, when they're in London. They were undefeated until, last week. So I have the Jaguars beating the Patriots. Because trust me, if they don't, you might tune in on Sunday and see Doug Peterson, NFL analyst, very soon. You have the Seahawks against the Falcons. This is a very sneaky, important game for the Seahawks. The Seahawks kind of feel like they're in they've been hit with a lot of injuries as well, but they kind of feel like they're in free fall. They were undefeated for and I think now they're on a 3-game losing streak. They need to right the ship, and it is tough to right the ship against the Falcons, and you're playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Falcons. I think this is an important game. I think that the Seahawks are reeling. There's just a lot going on, but I just think the Falcons are a better team. When they're playing their best, they're a better team. I think that when he's playing his best, Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Geno Smith. DK Metcalf only got 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I got the Falcons winning. I know the Seahawks probably need this win more, but I have the Falcons. Titans at Bills. I think we're going to see, this is the first game where Amari Cooper will be playing alongside Josh Allen. I don't think it matters if Amari Cooper plays or not. I have absolutely no faith in Will Levis. Will Levis has had more memes this year than touchdowns. Rumors are that and players like DeAndre Hopkins is on the trade block. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be traded before Sunday, but there's just a lot of disarray in Tennessee, and you're going up against a team that, albeit it did just get a big win against the Jets, but you're playing a team that's better than you, in my opinion. So I have the Bills, and Josh Allen is much better this year than who I think is number 1 in QBR this year. Right now, I'm going to go with the Bills. Cincinnati at Browns. Everything I said about the Eagles playing the Browns, everything I said about the Jaguars playing the Patriots pertains to the Bengals playing the Browns. Defensively, the Browns are still great, but their offense is so bad that it brings down the over. They're 1-5. And I know you're playing in Cleveland. And I know the Bengals are 2-4 themselves, but if you lose to the Browns, I understand it's a divisional opponent, but they have not shown a pulse damn near this entire year. So if you lose to that team, I'm not going to say that Zach Taylor gets fired, but that is right now. It's tough saying that the Bengals' worst loss. No, it's not. The Bengals' worst loss right now is the Patriots. If they lose to the Browns, that would be their official worst loss, even with the Browns being home. I have the Bengals winning because I am done thinking that the Browns have not scored 20 points at all this year. Think about that. The Browns is the only team in the NFL that has not cracked over 20 points. Yeah, no, you can't lose to them Bengals. I got the Bengals winning. Texans at Packers. This is going to be a great game. You have C.J. Stroud going against Jordan Love. Shout out to Mina Kimes. She did point out that Jordan Love has played excellent outside of one area, which is he is like 28th in QBR when we talk about the blitz. And the Texans are very good at blitzing. I think the Texans week after week are starting to get better, and now with Joe Mixon being back, it opens up this offense. Yes, Nico Collins not being there does hurt it, but you also have Tank Dell, you also have Stephon Diggs, you also have Dalton Schultz. But you are playing in Lambeau. And the Packers are a really good team. But I'm going to go with the Titans. I think Texans, I'm sorry. I have the Texans beating the Packers. I think it's going to be a very good game. If C.J. Stroud doesn't try to play hero ball and limits the turnovers, I think that the Texans are going to win. And with Joe Mixon being back, that just helps this offense. So I have the Texans beating the Packers. You have the Dolphins at Colts. Anthony Richardson is starting for the Colts. Tua is not starting or playing for the Dolphins, from what I've heard. You know what that means. The Dolphins team is such an inept team without Tua. I know they beat the Patriots, but it's the Patriots. So I have the Colts winning. I do not see this Dolphins team maintain, especially with the Colts offensively. You know, they picked it up. I know it's probably mostly been Joe Flacco, but I'm going to go with the Colts. Their starting quarterback is playing in Anthony Richardson, and the Dolphins is not. Arguably the game of the week, the Lions at Vikings. Undefeated, one loss. A team that going into the season there really wasn't much expectation, and now there is a boatload of expectation, seeing as though they're 5-0. Going against a team that going into the season, there was Super Bowl aspirations, and they've played pretty much like it the entire season. I think that you're going to... This next statement kind of implies that we haven't seen the real Lions or Vikings, and that's not true. I think we know what the Vikings are. The Vikings is a team that plays plays incredible defense. It's a team that you can't, if you're not prepared for, you're going to get destroyed. And Sam Darnold is playing at a great level. You still have arguably the best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson, and he's been incredible. Aaron Jones has been really good. You know what you're going to get from this Vikings team. And from the Lions team, they have arguably one of the best offenses in the league. Jared Goff, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Tim Patrick now. I think offensively, not having Aiden Hutchinson is a huge loss. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. You're at home, and I don't think people understand just how. I know it doesn't necessarily hurt the offense as much, but not having Aiden Hutchinson is huge. I think that I have the Vikings winning. So I think it's going to be a great game, and I think that it is arguably the game of the week. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Vikings. Philadelphia at Giants. Saquon Barkley return game. The Giants have scored one touchdown at home all season. They're 0-3 at home. I know you get Malik Neighbors back from concussion protocol. I don't think that matters. I think that the Eagles, as much as the Eagles have struggled this year, they're still 3-2, and they're still a better team. The Giants' defense has played exceptional these last few weeks. That's something that doesn't get talked about a lot because their offense has been so inept. Even though Daniel Jones has 1,343 passing yards. He also has 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. But, he has damn near the same exact. In fact, he almost has better numbers than Jared Goff. Damn, so why their offense suck so bad? I don't know. But their defense is good, and I got the Eagles winning. I think it's going to look terrible if the Eagles lose with Saquon being back. Nick Sirianni has been in the news cycle this whole week. Yeah, I think that they gotta win. Now, we did see the connection get renewed with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, so I think that's a huge plus for for the Eagles. But the Giants' defense has been playing really well. We just don't talk about it enough because they don't win. So, but I do have the Eagles winning this game. Raiders at Rams. Yo, the Raiders aren't good, bro. Their best player right now is Max Crosby and Brock Bowers. And until they figure out what they're going to do off, like, quarterback-wise, like, are they going to stick with Aiden O'Connell? Are they going to go back to Gardner Minshew? I don't think it matters, honestly. I have the Rams winning this game. The Rams are just better. You have Matthew Stafford. You have Kyron Williams. The Rams are just better, even at a 1-4 record. I got the Rams. The Raiders aren't good, bro. You know. Commanders at Panthers. The Panthers suck. I'm sorry, they do. And the fact that they're not going to have Deontay Johnson, who is their best wide receiver. Yeah. I think it's going to get really bad for the Panthers. And they're playing in Maryland. Yeah, no. I got the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is rookie right now, front runner for rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year. Panthers aren't good, so I got the Commanders. Chiefs at 49ers. Now, I think that this is going to be a great game. The reason why I said that the Lions and Vikings is going to probably be the game of the week is because there's a lot of. I think if both, obviously this is the rematch of the Super Bowl, and I think if both teams were completely healthy, it would be much better. It would be much more advertised and talked about. But right now, neither one of these teams are playing like the teams that we saw last year in Super Bowl. Obviously, Rashee Rice not being there, Christian McCaffrey not being there for the 49ers. It's going to be tough. And the 49ers defense, when they come to play, they come to play. But I don't know how they're going to fare. They've been able to get wins, but I don't know how they're going to fare against this defense. Like the offense, I don't know how it's going to fare against this defense, and I don't know how it's going to fare against Patrick Mahomes because you still are missing key pieces. So I got the Chiefs winning. I know that they're playing at San Francisco, but again, it's about the big three. I talked about it. The big three for the Chiefs is playing Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. And I don't like. Yeah, they're getting wins and they're beating teams at the end. And if they do win, then I wouldn't be shocked. I just don't think they will. The Chiefs are 5-0, and they finding ways to win. And I don't know how this offense is going to fare. The 49ers offense is going to fare going against this Chiefs defense. And I don't know how the 49ers defense that has been spotty throughout this entire year, I don't know how they're going to play against Patrick Mahomes. Even with all the injuries that they're dealing with, it's still Patrick Mahomes. So I have the Chiefs winning. The game of the week, I said, was going to be the Lions and Vikings. I think the most important game of the week is the Jets and Steelers. For some reason, we talked about it last episode. I'm not going to go back into detail, but for some reason, it looks like Russell Wilson is going to start. And Cam Newton said it best. Shouts out to Cam Newton for signing with ESPN, and now he's on First Take and stuff. I think that there's so much pressure on both teams to win this game. When we talk about the Jets, you just acquired Devontae Adams. You just lost in a heartbreaker to the Bills. You fired Robert Saleh. You demoted Nathaniel Hackett. Your season, and essentially, if you lose this game, you're tied with like second to last in the division. And honestly, you're tied with last in the division if the Patriots beat the Jaguars, which could happen. But if you lose to this team, if you lose to the Steelers and you just lost to the Bills and everything that happened these last 2 weeks and getting Devontae Adams, it is such a terrible look on the organization, on Aaron Rodgers, on Devontae Adams. So they understand the pressure that comes with this game. For the Steelers, you are making the gamble of benching a quarterback that has essentially got your team to 4-2. I'm not saying he's been Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's lit up the scoreboard, but he has not lost you games. You're 4-2. If you lose this game and you don't look good and Russell Wilson does not look good, that makes the whole front office look bad. It's like, yo, why did you do this? Again, and I think Bart Scott said it. If you're going to make this move, why do this against the Jets on primetime? Why not do this maybe a week after? I don't know, man. I'm going to pick the Jets. I think the Jets actually, back up. I think I'm going to pick the Steelers because the Steelers' defense is still healthy, and the Jets' offensive line has been horrible. The Jets' offensive line has been terrible. And you have a lot of division in the locker room. You got Aaron Rodgers throwing Mike Williams under the bus. Devontae Adams coming. How does Garrett Wilson feel about it? I don't know. I'm going to go with the Steelers. And I think Russell Wilson has to play good, bro. He has to, or he looks god-awful. The organization looks god-awful. I have the Steelers winning this. On Monday Night Football, you have, you have two games again. The first one is the Ravens at Buccaneers. I think that this is a very good game and a very sneaky game because you have two teams that are 4-2. Right now, the Ravens are on a 4-game win streak. You're going up against Baker Mayfield, who, in my opinion, at least up to this point of the season, has played himself into MVP contention. The Buccaneers are playing, especially offensively, they're playing incredible. We know that the Ravens sort of struggle with number one receivers, and you're going out up against Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin has been really good as well. However, we know that Baker Mayfield has sort of struggled against the blitz, and he's sort of struggled against trying to do everything. And the Ravens offensively are a juggernaut. They have by far the best running game in football with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think that I'm going to go with the bet. I think these teams are a lot closer than a lot of people would like to lead on, but I'm going to go when it's like that, who has the better players and who has looked the best. And the Ravens' best win has been probably been the Commanders or Cincinnati Bengals. The Buccaneers' best win has for sure been against the Commanders, or the Commanders lost to both of these teams, or I think the Lions. And I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson. Going back to Florida, he's from Jacksonville. I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think the Ravens, and you have Derrick Henry. Yeah. This defense has been playing really well. Don't get me wrong. This Buccaneers defense has been playing exceptional, but they also haven't played an offense like the Ravens yet. And we know Lamar Jackson is 22-1 against the NFC. So I'm gonna go with the Ravens. Then you have the Chargers and Cardinals. Don't nobody care about this game, but I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I trust the defense and I trust the run game. I don't really trust either one of these teams, obviously, but I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is supposed to be playing. J.K. Dobbins is supposed to be playing for the Chargers. Justin Herbert, who seems to always be hurt but always playing through injury. He's like the modern day Matthew Stafford. He's supposed to be playing. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think the Chargers defensively is better, so I'm going to go with them. That's my week 7 picks. Who do you guys think is going to win? Let me know. And lastly, before we go, next time we speak, the NBA season I think it starts on Tuesday. Next time we speak will be on Wednesday. And I'm excited for this season, man. I'm not going to stay on this long because, again, it's going to be an interesting season because this is probably one of the rare times where how do I say this? Because now that I'm thinking about it and hearing me say it in my head, it's not true. The West is extremely loaded. I wouldn't be shocked if at least 5 teams made it to the championship. You have the Denver Nuggets, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, you have Minnesota Timberwolves, you have Dallas Mavericks. Like, I think the Lakers still have LeBron and AD. You still have Golden State and Steph Curry. Like, the Kings now have DeMar DeRozan. I think it's going to be a very tough division or conference in the East. We always talk about dynasties, and we always say that, like the Denver Nuggets. We thought the Denver Nuggets were going to be the next dynasty. The way that they were able to pretty much cakewalk through the playoffs when they won their championship. People are saying the same thing about the Boston Celtics. They had an even easier and an even more dominant cakewalk through the playoffs, and they're retaining pretty much all their players. So are they going to be able to complete the repeat? Karl Anthony Towns is now a Knick, and the Knicks have made a bunch of moves, whether we talk about trading Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, getting Mikal Bridges. Are they going to be that team? What about the Milwaukee Bucks? Seems like nobody talks about them. I don't know. Miami Heat, they're always in the bunch somewhere. I think that it's going to be a very interesting season, and as a basketball lover, I am very excited. I'll give my predictions now. I'm going to say the Oklahoma City Thunder and Boston Celtics will make the championship. And, oh, God. No. Oh, God. As much as I hate it, as much as I hate to admit it. Oh, actually, no. Oklahoma City Thunder. I got the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the championship. I think that when you look at both rosters next to each other, while you can argue Boston has the best 2 players in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Oklahoma City Thunder still have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they still have J-Dub, they still have Chet Holmgren. Now you have Alex Caruso. Yeah. I got Oklahoma City Thunder winning the championship. So we'll see. And I'm excited for the season. There you have it. That has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. I appreciate you guys. If you get to this far and not subscribe, I don't know what to tell you. So please subscribe. Also, if you listen to me on DSPs, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever DSP you're listening to me on, please follow. Please subscribe. I appreciate all of you guys. I'm trying to grow my DSP listenership more, so anything would help. I appreciate you guys. Also, Please follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily, whether we talk about reels, whether we talk about stories, whether we talk about, going back and forth and debating. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're passionate about whatever we're speaking on and you're listening to me, both of which I appreciate. So please follow the socials. Until next time, much love.